Today's story is called the Interracial Dating Forum, and it takes us back to when I was in college. So when I was in college, I believe I told you about a student group that I ran and was a part of called HAPA Issues Forum. And HAPA Issues Forum mostly focused on mixed Asian issues, like we were fighting to try to get an ability to mark multiracial and say which different races were part of your identity on the census. Because back in the year 2000, I was in college in the 1990s, you actually couldn't mark what specific mixed races you wanted to on the census. You had to mark one box. Later on, HAPA Issues Forum actually expanded their focus after I left school, because there used to be some student groups that were based on all mixed races, but those student groups sort of dissolved. And so HAPA Issues Forum was still going strong, and they decided to broaden their focus, and they actually became the Mixed Student Union. And I'm wearing that shirt. I kept in touch with them and went to some of their conferences. Great stuff. So HAPA Issues Forum became the Mixed Student Union. And one of the things that we did when it was the HAPA Issues Forum is we would have something called the Interracial Dating Forum. And basically what we would do is we would have a panel of people, guest speakers, who would be on a table in the front. And then we would have a whole audience in a classroom with a whole bunch of desks and chairs. And they would be watching. And actually, I think it was probably more in a theater style. So we just had rows of chairs. And so one year we were putting on the Interracial Dating Forum, and I was in the front and I introduced all the panelists, and then I went to sit in the back and let the panelists do their thing. And I remember at that time there was this very powerful speaker. He was a young African-American man, and he started to explain his identity and his dating patterns and his preferences. And he was very powerfully saying like he really wanted to only date African-American women, because he felt like, as an African-American man, he said, had such unique and distinct experiences in America, he wanted his partner to understand what those experiences were like. And he really felt like a person from his same racial background would have that understanding, and it was important to him. And I remember sitting in the back row, listening to him and how powerfully he was talking, and just being like, yeah, oh, that totally makes sense. Thank you. I really understand where you're coming from. That might not be true for me, but it was really interesting to hear his perspective. Well, I was sitting in that back row, and while I was doing that, next to me, just across the aisle, there was a young woman. And I remember she may have been wearing a hoodie. And I remember that she was very slender and she had quite pale skin. And I remember that as I was looking at her, she was starting to get really emotional. I could see she was almost starting to, really feel, as this man was talking, it was like really hitting her really hard. And when they opened it up to question times, she raised her hand and they called on her, and she stood up. And I remember she said in a soft but strong voice, she said, I want to respond to the young African-American man who's talking about his dating preferences. And I just wanted to say that though I respect where you're coming from, I want you to know that when I hear that story, it actually hurts me. And the reason it hurts me is because I feel like you are rejecting me because I'm not a black woman. You wouldn't consider going out with me because I wouldn't understand oppression and the oppression you feel. And the reason that feels so painful to me is because as a woman, I feel like I experience a tremendous amount of oppression just living in American society. And it hurts that you feel like I wouldn't be able to understand you because of that. And then she sat down. And then I remember looking at her and I remember thinking, wow, that was really powerful. Like I had never considered her perspective about that in that way either. And I tell you this story not because I think one of them is right or the other one is not right. And I felt like it was a really respectful exchange where people were able to hear how other people felt, and it was so powerful. But I remember walking away from that and just thinking about how I need to make sure that I am constantly listening and open to change and hearing how other people feel and not judging how they feel, but respecting their identity and knowing that just in listening, I can change who I am and how I see the world. So I'm not saying one of them was right or one of them was wrong, but more just this experience where I really felt like the world just opened up because I was able to hear different perspectives. Thanks.